Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Start Small, Think Big podcast brought to you by Digital Meld. My name is Brad Grew, founder and CEO of Digital Meld.
I'm Robert Grew, founder and CTO. Excited to be back after a few-week hiatus.
And my name is Anthony Amunategui, and I'm the president of CDO Group and the Future Factory podcast.
Yeah, so thank you, Anthony, for joining us here. I was on Anthony's Future Factory podcast a couple weeks ago, and we had a great time in conversation on there. And again, thank you, Anthony, for having me on. And so we thought we'd have a reciprocal conversation and bring it on. Anthony, on his Future Factory podcast, talks to a lot of technologists and innovators in the small business space specifically, and mid-market. And so we just thought he'd have some terrific insights on how small businesses are utilizing AI and automation moving forward. And so thanks again for joining us, Anthony. Why don't you just take a couple minutes and, tell folks about yourself, about CDO Group, about the podcast, and those sorts of things.
You know, by the way, guys, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to be on somebody else's podcast. I feel like I now know what it feels like to be a guest. You know, I've had CDO Group now for 28 years, and it's been great growing a business. And my favorite part about growing a business is who I become to grow the business, right? It's ultimately my hero's journey as a man, and it's always been fun to watch that development. And back after COVID, I got the chance. I was a little bored one night. I had to tell you the truth. My wife went out with what I call the bad moms, right? She was out having fun, drinking wine at some restaurant, and I'm at home sitting there watching TV, and I was a little jealous. And I'm like, what the hell you're jealous of? Oh, I know why I was jealous. I was sitting on the couch doing nothing, and I was jealous that she was out having fun. And the next day I said, what are the things you want to do? I've always wanted to start a podcast. I want to learn to fly. And I started both of those the next day, and that's where Future Factory came from. And for me, it's been about finding great entrepreneurs and great leaders and figuring out where the world's going. And it's been great to have a bunch of people on and really start to dive into what's really working, where are people really getting traction, what's the snake oil, and what's the real stuff that's out there.
Yeah, that's great insights. And again, I think shut up and build is kind of the mantra that we need to kind of listen to. That's what we tell folks in the small business space. Don't be afraid. Take a swing for the fences. Use whatever euphemism you want to, or saying you want to say to get yourself motivated. But the AI tools are now making it easier and easier and easier. I say it all the time, for folks to punch above their weight class. And we hope that you take the feedback and insights that Anthony provides here and kind of build it on what we've provided in previous episodes, that this is approachable. You can do this. If we can do it, you can. I would think Anthony would probably agree. He started CDO Group 20 plus years ago. He never thought he'd probably succeed, but here he is, right? And it's just It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? You just need to wake up every day and put the shoes on.
Yeah, look, every time you have an idea, grow a construction company nationwide, grow the idea. Look, you're going to walk through broken glass. The journey of an entrepreneur is about sustaining the broken glass. None of you are getting out without walking through broken glass. It's the idea that, I think one of the fundamental flaws that we get all these motivational speakers are out there, go follow your bliss and go do what makes you happy. I'm like, stop, that's bullshit. Those are always rich guys that are saying, here, when I start making some money, I always tell the young guys, go follow your bliss. Yeah, great, because I've already made my money. But look, to build a business, you have to do what you're good at and work your ass off on it every day. And that's the truth, is really getting up. And I've always been great at construction. I started early days at Blockbuster Video. I went on to Boston Market. I went on to Einstein Bagels. I went on to Panera Bread, and I worked for those brands. I became really good at doing nationwide construction. And it was something great. Now, look, it's not easy. Look, you want to do construction. It's literally the epitome of beat your ass every single day. You're solving problems. No one walks in my door without having something on fire, covered in barbed wire. People shooting guns at you. It's what happens in construction, in the world of solving problems. But, when you get good at going, all right, look, in the heat of the battle, I'm really good at it. It's something I do great. And I think that's what you got to do as an entrepreneur. Find that part that even if it's hard, look, hard work is okay. It's what makes America, our country's been built on great hard work. I travel this world and I see all these, I just came back from Greece and I'm like, you try to get a Greek guy to do hard work. No. We're living the lifestyle. We have this. I'm like, yeah. And you're all bitching why you can't, no one, everyone's broke. The economy's not working. Hey, by the way, they got garbage floating down the street. You're like, look, here in America, we work our asses off. Great Americans have built this country on their backs by just getting up every day and doing what it takes. And that's what I love about our country.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really resonated with what you're saying about the leadership, self-help gurus out there. Like, Brad, I've mentioned this to you before. It's like, I want to know how you were when you were in the trenches, not how you are today. I don't care how you are today, because that doesn't relate to me and where I'm at as an entrepreneur. it's always tough to navigate that and figure out, what's real and what's fake. And so it's good to hear. And that's really, really good insights. And I agree. That's what this country was built on, hard work. And I think the future is going to be, I mean, Brad and I were talking about this last night. The future is going to be these smaller companies, I think, that are going to rise as the top. And you're going to start seeing companies the size of 10, 20, 30 people generating billions of dollars, which has never happened before, right? That's going to happen. So exciting times, scary times, right? It's going to be.
Yeah, look, small businesses aren't behind, right? You're more agile. What's great about being a small business, those of you that are 2, 3 guys and a computer and a desktop, look, you're not behind. Or way more agile than the big company, or look, even more agile than us as a company. At CDO Group, you get to 50, 60, 70 employees. It's less agile. Back when we had a couple guys look, at one point, guys, there was 4 of us at an old coffee table in my basement, an old dining room table, an old brown table. We had a light over the top. We could do anything, anytime we wanted, because we were agile. And sometimes as you grow, those systems get in place to grow that make you less agile. But so what you're talking about is right on. Being a young entrepreneur with a laptop and the flexibility to do whatever you want today is one of the gifts of being in today's market. More than ever before. It's never been more viable that 2 guys in a computer can make something happen.
Yeah, those are all great points. And again, we like to say that you can punch above your weight class. That's the thing. The technology is going to help you do that. It's going to help you, with AI and automation, and even the communication aspect of it. But small business owners, you wear multiple hats, and you can wear multiple hats and be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Now you can be a master of many because you have LLMs to help you get you up to speed on topics and things. Robert and I have been looking at like how we bid on RFPs for government work and things like that. Like you couldn't compete in that realm, or it's very hard. It's the barrier of entry is very hard by design. Let's admit it, by design, to make the larger organizations have an easier time. Now with automation tools for RFP automation and monitoring and just understanding those sorts of things, you can get involved much earlier. So it's great to know that folks are understanding that the beauty. I say it all the time. The beauty of small business stress is it's your stress. Whenever you're working for your company, it's your stress, and there's nothing like that in the world.
Yeah, nothing like it at all. And you're going to scare the crap out of yourself. It's okay, right? The part about being a business owner is that, the motivation is that I get out. Look, if I don't get my ass out of bed today, we're not going to get paid, and I got bills to pay. And I want to, I got a family to feed. So it drives me. But to your point, it's my stress. And by the way, going to work for a corporation, when someone swipes their tail and goes, look, I'm getting done with this division, you lose your job. I got tired of that. I hated not having my own future at the whim. My future was at the whim of somebody else. Every time a brand said, well, we're stopped building, or I had worked my ass off for those companies. And then all of a sudden somebody walked in and said, nothing you did, we're losing your jobs. We're changing. And now all of a sudden, you know, I was at their whim. And today we don't have to do that. Today you can add great value. I mean, it took Amazon, 10 years to get to a viable business. And today with $200 in a chat GPT account, you can do what they're doing in, automation and prompt engineering in a way that it's never been before possible.
Yeah. And I know there's still a lot of people that are very skeptical, especially a lot of my network that's in the software engineering space. And like what I keep trying to tell people is like, it gets you started. There's a lot of people that have great ideas that don't know where to start. Brad and I have talked about this on numerous podcasts where we've had ideas, but what's the deal breaker? Like, we're not great programmers and we don't know a great programmer. That just stopped the idea right there. And now, before we would have to study and learn for months and months and months. And now we can build stuff on the fly and get an MVP, ready for a customer or ready for somebody, or even just an internal tool we want to use within hours or days, right? What would have taken us months or even years in some circumstances. And so that's what I tell those people. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get you a little bit further, and just worry about the bigger picture later on, right? That's the big thing that I try to tell those folks. So it's good.
Look, perfection is the enemy of progress. It's the death of AI adoption is, what's stopping. I have grace for that. Really, here's what I get today. As I look back over myself, that analysis paralysis is really just me getting brave enough and bold enough to get my feet on the ground to go after it. Right. And I wasn't ready to be bold. And hey, fair enough, right? But as I started looking today and going, look, you have a chance to go be bold. Now, the first time you're bold, you're going to pee your pants for a second. Okay, look, I peed my pants, and great. Nobody took away my birthday, and I'm still alive today. And by the way, I thought I was going to lose a few paychecks and be broke. And the truth was, I never didn't get a paycheck. In 28 years of doing it, we've had tough times, right? Real tough times. But somehow or another, we've eked out enough to live and get by, and we've survived the worst. We have survived every one of our worst days. In days when people quit. I mean, I once had 3 VPs leave all at one time to go start another company on their own and compete against me. And they had my intellectual property and my knowledge. And I thought in that moment, I'm like, this, I'll never survive. And the truth was, we survived it, and we actually grew through it. It was like pruning some big giant trees, and the tree got smarter and smarter. So, you know, go out there. For those of you guys that are afraid, be bold and go there. And I don't know what it is, but there's some higher power, some higher being that I don't know holds a pretty good space for us.
No, for sure. I think we say all the time, the most important notion for success is your faith in your ability to figure things out. Like there's nothing more important to that. That can't be taught. That's earned, right? You have to earn the ability to say, I'm going to figure this out. And like now you have the world's knowledge at your fingertips with these LLMs. So there's really no excuses. Again, I say it all the time. People probably heard me say this and probably tired of saying it, but like back whenever I was a teen, it was like we had to go to the library and know the Dewey Decimal System and like learn how to read books and then YouTube came along, made life much, much easier. Now you can literally ask ChatGPT for a roadmap. Give me a 6-month plan to build this idea, and it's going to give you a pretty good plan. I think it's great because I think you have a saying is like start ugly, right? You have a philosophy is like just start ugly. It's going to be the first podcasts we ever recorded were terrible. I look at them now, it's like, what was I thinking? The first 4 or 5, right, Robert? Like, but the key was to start and build out momentum. Now we're getting 50, 60,000 views across all platforms and media every week. And it's not because we're doing things differently. It's just, it's an attrition. It's a war of attrition.
My first podcast was my friend Dan Wisk, who, God bless his soul, he passed away on us. But he was just one of my friends. He was just bold enough to get on there with me. We did it on Zoom from my desk. The mic was terrible. The video was terrible. He was wearing a big giant patch. He had just got done having surgery. And the entire time his head was turned, so he couldn't see the patch on the side of his head. And but it worked. Somehow or another, it broke the barrier from not doing one to doing one. Right? Breaking that barrier, found out that no one took away my birthday. It got me excited, like, oh, look at that. We got one done. And then I would get out, I learned more of my stuff about podcasting from other podcasters like you guys. I'd get on, I'm like, oh, what kind of mic are you using? Well, we're using this mic. Or, hey, do you have a Rodecaster yet? Or do you have this? Or are you using Riverside? Or what's the platform? And all of that stuff starts to unwind faster. You just got to get started. It's that key of just, whatever it is your business you want to do, whatever you and your buddies are sitting there thinking about doing today, just go do. It's kind of it's funny when you look at life, the human being is built it's the lesson to learn. If you look down below, I've got these big giant legs sticking out the bottom of my body. It's almost 50% of my body. It really represents movement. Right. And it's kind of like that in my life, like get movement on anything you're working on. Today, I own 9 companies, and people ask me, well, what is it that's your secret sauce? And it's about relentless moving, right? No matter what, I'll move this one as far forward as I can today, and then I'll get stuck. And there's never a time in my day where I have nothing to do. There's always something to move forward, right? And there's always some I can call one more client. I can follow up on one more deal. I can check with the insurance thing. Some some chessboard to move forward, even if it's just a couple more things or try one more call. I can't tell you how many times I've made one more call to someone who hasn't responded back on an RFI or a proposal, and then boom, all of a sudden I get them in the office, and just they were busy, they didn't have time, and we start to unwind it. It was just that one more call at 4:00 in the afternoon when I'm like, I'm going to give up for the day. And I'm like, no, let's go make one more call. Right. That piece of it. So I think, there's something about moving when you're in as an entrepreneur. For those of you that are stuck, keep moving.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good advice. And, it's one thing as I was growing in my career, I started, rubbing elbows with executives. And at least when I was growing up, you always just kind of think like, man, I wonder what it's like to be those really successful guys out there that are, making tons of money, they're heads of companies. Like, how are they doing all this? And what I saw is literally hard work, dedication. I mean, this is, and work-life balance is a big thing as well for most of those guys that I knew, because they had young families and they all figured it out. I learned so much just watching that. It's like, hey, this isn't easy. Anybody that says otherwise, like, it's just not the full story. It's not easy. Nobody said it would, but it's about the time and what you learn, and you learn so much just doing it day by day. Like you said, just doing one more call, or hey, we should have done this, or we should have done that. Like, just talking about it. Like, Brad and I internally do that a ton, and I know all small businesses we work with are doing the same. And so that's just really, really good advice. And I think, how a lot of people are like, hey, you guys are an AI podcast. I think all this kind of wraps in together with the mindset of what you have to have to implement this stuff. Because even today, I mean, Brad and I talk with people all the time. I can't tell you how many people are still they're just kind of in the chat GPT phase, and it's like the training aspect. Like, what else can we do with this? Like, where is the value here? Right. And Anthony, I know you talk with a ton of businesses and a ton of people. Like, what are you seeing? What's separating the people that are actually taking advantage of these tools?
Here's what I've learned, guys. You don't need an AI department, right? You just need to be bold. You need permission to experiment, right? Stop waiting for, I need now look, CDO Group have brought in a group of AI prompt engineers, which is revolutionary in the construction world, right? But the things that we're doing today with ChatGPT, okay, I'll give you an example. We bid projects all around the country. Today, we use AI to take a project. I can tell you how many screws we're going to use on a project, right? How many 2x4s, how many sheets of drywall. AI does that for us, right? We used to take off, and people in our look, if you go look up in our estimating department, there's 8 people up there, and there was people that did takeoffs all day long, so we can figure out. Today, we do that by segment, by ChatGPT, and we've really created each and every one of those parts. We've created an AI agent for every discipline in there, and that really started by just starting with an AI prompt engineer that said, "All right, look, how could we ask ChatGPT to go and help me take a set of plans? I can put them to put it in the ChatGPT and then break it down, and now I can get a takeoff of all materials. Now, once I got materials figured out, what was amazing about that was then I could put together all of these schedules. Now, this is where people are missing out, is that they're thinking that somewhere CDO Group had some sort of magic AI team. I'm telling you, I hired a kid in a computer who literally, it was a kid in a computer, like literally a kid in a computer. And we said, hey, you're going to be a prompt engineer. We're going to call you a prompt engineer. And what your job is to start asking ChatGPT enough questions, right? And start to create a personality for each segment of what we do. So you're going to look at each of the guys that do takeoffs, and we just started playing, right? Today, that has turned into a minimum viable product that we're going to sell. Look, that came from nothing. Like literally, we pulled it out of our ass, right? It was like, how much time you want to spend, and this is what you got to really look at. If you're not using AI today, you're already spending too much money in your business, right? If you look at what 8 people do right up there doing takeoffs, the amount of time we have, just think about this. We have, let's go for one of the major hamburger brands that we built, right? I mean, big boy restaurant brands, right? And let's say that they're, $3 million, $4 million restaurants. Takeoffs may take a week to do, right? It may be a full team of people that are doing it. Today, we're doing that same work in minutes, right? By the time we put it in, we break it down, and now we can send to our subcontractors. Think about what we've revolutionized. The best subcontractors that we hire are guys that are working, right? When you're out there bidding against other people, right? We're working with subcontractors who are, 10 maybe they have 10 superintendents, trucks, and the owners out on job sites every day. And then they got to come home at night and they got to estimate projects, right? Well, the problem is they don't want those estimates what happens if they don't do great estimates, they're afraid that they're going to lose money. So either it causes them to overestimate, to put enough fluff in there that makes us not competitive, right? All of a sudden, if we go to bid with their number and they're not competitive, or it takes them a lot more time to get that number put together. Now, what we've done is we've taken a scope and we've broken it down to screws, and now we're showing, hey, Mr. Electrician, you've got 3,500 linear feet of this wire, X number of feet of this. You've got this in boxes. we're giving them a takeoff that is so precise that they can send that over to their supply house and they've got a material list in seconds. And we're giving that to them saying, hey, look, we want you to come bid for us. And we've done some of the work. We want you to check it. We want to make sure that our AI didn't miss anything, but we used an AI tool that did this takeoff for you. And we're giving it to you. And the response we get back are, yeah, we want to work with you guys. Because look, if you can do that with the takeoff, what could you do for our scheduling? Now our schedules, because we have that material list, now our scheduling gets way smarter than ever before. So today we can tell that same electrician group, oh, look, you're gonna have 5 electricians. And this is what each of them are gonna do every day, right? Not, here, what most schedules on a construction job site are, they're bullshit, right? Most of them are mobilize here, off an inspection here. The task to get to that point does not serve the superintendent, who doesn't have clarity of vision of what's about to happen. And are we ahead or behind? They're guessing. They're pulling a guess out of their gatukas. Or does it give the owner of the electrical company any insight to what their people should be doing every day, right? So people show up on a job site and, imagine they've already bid this project to death to get the job. Now, if their people show up and are inefficient, they're losing money. And do they want to work for companies that lose that money? No, right? So our great subs go, hey, today we can tell you what all 5 people do, right? We can tell you that electrician number 1 is going to go over here and they're going to put in these 11 boxes on this wall and 3 boxes on this wall. And by the end of the day, if you have this done, right, we know that tomorrow we're given an exact task to do. And by the way, if they can do today's, tomorrow's, and the next days, now they've gotten efficient, right? Now our subcontractors can look at you and go, now I'm making money, right? Because now I can get my guys off that job site faster. And by the way, we can too, because now we can give we know the drywaller, we know that we can close those walls up, we can call for inspection earlier, and it gives us a much better clarity on stuff than before. So then as they're doing that work, we're updating those schedules live, right? So, what happens on most job sites are day 2, your schedule belongs out in the porta potty, right? You take that thing out there and you might as well wipe your ass with it because no, it's not been updated. It's start construction here, end construction here. What happens in the middle, we're all just guessing and hoping it happens. And today it doesn't have to happen that way. And that's a product of that all happened from hiring a kid with a laptop who started making it. He was not a computer engineer, literally just a smart young man who helped us create questions to ask the GPTs to, and start creating a scheduling GPT, right? An electrician scheduling GPT, and one that a plumber scheduler. And the combination of those really brought together an overall scheduling prompt practice. So we're getting better and better at it. I think that where we go with this is going to now tie into deliveries and delivery quantities and stuff that we're going to be able to buy stuff and deliver stuff to a job site smarter than ever before. That's what I try to tell you is that don't, those of you that are waiting, thinking it's some magical solutions out there, it's not. Be messy. Get started with the messiness of it, and you'll find out if you're curious and willing to be messy, you will solve what the old timers that are all waiting for perfection. This analysis paralysis. They're all waiting to fight. We don't want to do that. We're going to mess up. Yeah, of course you're going to mess up. Yeah, of course. Our first takeoffs were gross and they were wrong and they missed notes and then we had to teach it to read different things and all that came into practice.
Yeah, that's fantastic insights. Thank you so much for sharing that story and the real world aspect of it. Again, we work with construction engineering firms all the time as well, so we see a lot of the same issues that you do. The subcontractors are complaining about the invoicing process is too painful, or payments are too slow, or scheduling is not where it needs to be, or the logistics of parts delivery and things, materials delivery. We use AI and automation to streamline operations for folks too. And that trickle down effect is real. It is, if you create something that makes someone's life easier, it generally makes someone else's life easier. It's just, we say start small, think big. And the funny thing is Morningstar put out a US Bank survey that for small business stressors, and like AI is one of those stressors. And they found that like 50% of small businesses are utilizing AI and are preparing to utilize AI. And in this area, they're talking about LLMs specifically. But the beauty of that is 70% of them are spending less than $50 a month. So you can get started for very, very little. You can go to ChatGPT and start using it for free. I would pay the $20 to get the paid version, and you can get a little bit more out of it. But for the most part, this isn't a huge hurdle. Like you said, you hired a kid with a laptop, $25, $30 an hour maybe, like to get him first started, and you can actually revolutionize your business just by start small, think big, right?
Think about this. Imagine one of our goals right now is to be able to pay subcontractors every day. Imagine us paying you. We're going to be the fastest paying GC on the planet. Our whole goal is to be able to release payments for people daily. Like here, here, just like you've done with an Uber ride, that Uber rider driver gets paid at the end of a ride. There's no reason. The whole payment application, the whole payment process, the whole reason why that whole thing exists is because nobody trusts the information they get. Look, if you go look at the way we do pay requests for a project, it's nonsense. It's you got some project manager out there looking at it going, all right, are they 20% done? Are they 30? And then you're billing and you're trying to figure, look, we're going to have schedules that are so tight that are, we're now on such a tight schedule that we can see your actual things completed compared to what the rest of the tasks that need to get done. As we release payments, we're right on the number, right? So if for some reason, if someone were to fail and walk away from a job, we'll be able to complete it because we'll know what needs to get done. The problem is if a subcontractor failed before, right, you had to leave enough money in your project because you couldn't see it. You don't know what they got done, right? To be able to bring another subcontractor in, be able to complete their work, to be able you had to go find them, you had to go bid them, but today we're so on top of schedules, we can show the next contract. For God forbid something were to happen, right? Someone won the lottery, they never showed up again. We can today see that it was much, much more clear, but they don't because they realize that by working with us, they're, they have clarity of scope and they can make more money faster.
That's really good. I have a bunch of colleagues and friends and family in the industry, subcontracting industry and construction space. And I've always been the tech guy, like, hey man, have y'all tried this? Have you done this? And it's just like, no, we've always done it this way. This is how we've done it forever. Do you deal with that on the subcontracting level? Like, how do you handle those conversations? Cause like, that's something we deal with. And I know people are probably working for businesses that say that same thing. Hey, we've always done it this way. We're successful. We're happy.
They are, and one of the biggest problems we have are guys that are my age, right? They're trying to outrun AI, right? They're trying to get to retirement before they have to do anything with AI. And I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, but you're not going to make it, right? Look, these next 24 months really are the differentiating factor between the companies that will be successful, right, and those that we can't work with because they're not tech savvy enough to fit into the system. What's about to happen in the real estate and construction world are, it's going to, imagine this I'm going to just take a little bit of time and go back here to be able to function in what's going to happen in the commercial real estate world is dramatically going to speed up. Now, look, will there be guys out there that, will you be able to be a taxi driver in an Uber world? For sure. Right. And here, look, there's guys out there who have bought shields and they want to hold on to their taxi license. And those guys you're talking about, they want to be taxi drivers, and fair enough. You're not trying to convince them to change, not worth the effort. You just got to realize that there's so much more money to be made when we don't play the game of, I'm afraid to change. Because it's not imagined the problem is it feels that way when you're a guy who's not tech savvy. And I remember the first time I did computers, I couldn't log into my own. Yeah, look, I'm 57 years old. I've changed a lot in 57 years. I mean, every time you ask me I lock myself for more passwords than anybody in the company. But that's what happens when you're kind of archaic. But this lift is not that same lift, right? This lift with technology and AI is a much smaller and easier lift than you realize. And what they're going to see is that, look, if they want a viable business in the next 36 months, right, for the next 24 months, you got to start to adapt that. And the things that are happening just let me give you an example on the national rollout stage, right? We do all national rollouts, right? We do big brands, national rollouts across 50 states, hundreds and hundreds of projects with millions of dollars. For years, there were impacts to a real estate deal for a national brand just to get to approval might take 18 months. Well, what's about to happen is about to change that to days. And I'm telling you what they're doing today in analytical analysis about a property, the demographic modeling that's going to be able to look at a piece of property with such depth that we've never been able to do before, right? To be able to look at the demographics, the trade area, trade analytics, the competitive models, what it took before to do and analyze a project was all heavy lifting. And look, I'm one of those guys who started out in the field with a stopwatch and a thing like a clicker. All right, cars coming by this way, cars coming by that way, pedestrians. I'd have 3 of these little clickers counting people walking by and driving by. And today, the amount of data you can get on every street that's out there is crazy. And what's coming with cell phone records and drive patterns and drive times and all the data that's getting picked up by all of these all these traffic mapping softwares is showing people the traffic patterns way smarter. And then you've got all the credit card receipts because everything's gone electronic, and you can see spending patterns and habits. And what's happening is the combination of data is being able to give you trade area analysis, analytical work way different than ever before. And a company will be able to go do site selection with 1,000x the data they used to be able to get, right? Making that decision logic way smarter than before, which is going to force that real estate deal to happen faster, right? Now, with AI driven design, imagine being able to now owners that own property are all of you guys are owners that own property. Today, you got to start working on digitizing that property. And I don't mean if it's a box, if it's a shopping center, if it's a piece of dirt, you got to understand the more digitized that piece of property is, AI can't see it unless it's in a digital platform. For those of you that are still archaic and expecting your broker to be able to get to everybody, it's not going to be possible. Look, as they do demographic searches and go out there, if that property is not digitized, AI won't, it's blind to it, right? Oh, there's a piece of property there. But the more digitized it is and more available digital information is, the more predictable and deliverable and exciting it will be for the AI model to pick that piece of property, right? So the more they understand it. Now, from there, you'll be able to design much, much faster, right? A digital piece of property, I'll be able to do a design overlay, call it a national hamburger brand. I'll be able to put my prototype on that in a second, right? And I can, from there, right, based on the stuff that we're doing right now, being able to pull numbers for that in that next second, right? We'll be able to digitally design the property and then digitally figure out the pricing for it. And I'll be understanding my cash outlay, my 30, 60, 90, 120 day cash outlay as an owner. And then even a predictable delivery for performance later on. That would be something that no one's ever been seen before. So what's going to happen are these projects are going to get much, much faster, right? If you go look at, I just came back from Greece, they're a few thousand years older than we are. And not that they're not on the most beautiful piece of land in the world. I mean, seriously, Croatia, Greece, the most beautiful piece of land that are out there. So they got an advantage on look on some places. But us as a country, we can move. We're that smaller, younger country, just like you guys that are out there, those smaller, younger companies. You have an advantage of stealthiness, of moving to the marketplace, being able to perform and develop way faster than before. And that's the gift of being a young a country like us, and young companies that are out there. It's the same thing, right? Same format out there. Is that we can adjust and we can develop so much faster than they have. I mean, we blow thousands of people, countries with thousands of years on us. We crush them when it comes to performance of development in our country. You got Americans, we got to look at and go, we got to be proud of the stuff we have. Rob, you're down there in Houston. To go through that area you're in, it's beautiful, right? I would put that against some of the strongest parts of the world out there in just beauty and development and structures and product availability and comfort of lifestyle. I mean, it just, other than it gets pretty damn hot down there in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is really good because I'm definitely going to send this to a few folks. I'm like, hey, you need to listen to this, because what I keep trying to tell people, and Brad's the same, is the superpower is people like you, Anthony, that understand your business very well and can embrace this stuff. Because what companies are doing is, they're hiring, companies like ours, Digital Meld and others, to help them build these solutions. But guess what? Like, we only can get you so far. The rest is going to be on the business to embrace, like, where does this fit? We can't answer that, right? We can help and guide and help people, but really the business owners, the leaders, the champions, whoever like get shit done in your business, those are the people that are going to like elevate this hugely, because that's where they can say, hey, I think it makes sense. We can inject it here. We can inject it in this process. It's not about AI doing everything. It's about AI, at least in my mind, it's not about it doing everything. It's about, hey, what makes the most sense for us right now? Like, what thing do we hate, or what thing could we make way better that we know we can make way better? That it's, and all that power is in the knowledge of how the business works, how the industry works. And so that's really good stuff.
I mean, construction isn't broken because of people. It's broken because of bad workflows, right? I mean, it's broken because the data. I mean, think about what we do in construction. We have a piece of dirt. We send someone out to do a site survey, right? We collect all this data. We give it to the structural guy who does who does a pad design or does my structural stuff to give me my underground and build my building pad, and then an architect builds a building on top of it, and all that data that gets collected, it gets thrown away. Imagine a future where all the data collected on the site survey, the soil analysis, all the analytical work, all the demographic modeling, all of that stays with the property. And then all the data that gets collected with the property, right? So sales receipts and car volumes and all the stuff that happens on that property forever gets aggregated, right? The aggregation of this work that does, is going to make our future even that much smarter. Now, those of you that are out there going, I don't know what to do with AI, start there. Start realizing that digitizing workflows and getting rid of, just like our company, if you look at the week that it takes for us to do a takeoff of every one of those little parts and pieces, right, that now we can do in minutes, right? Think about how we've changed 8 people's lives in an estimating department, and we've given our subs a much smarter picture where they can see clarity of vision, and they want to bid for us because of that, right? Now, how does that apply to your business? If you're a caterer or a restaurateur or you're, your school, how do you digitize each of your workflow processes that you can start to use that AI tool and make smart. Today AI is smart enough to fix those workflows.
Yeah, that's one place we generally start. We call it process automation, but the same sort of thing. It's the workflows. What are the ways we can improve those workflows? And we only really see AI as you're injecting AI where it makes sense in those workflows, and automation too. Sometimes it needs to be a manual process. Sometimes you need that human in the loop. It's great that you brought up like the site surveys and things, because what people don't understand now is LiDAR sensors have gotten so cheap. For the folks who don't know, LiDAR is just laser driven radar. So you can do a 3D mapping of your property. You can hire a drone operator that has a $4,000 or $5,000 drone with a LiDAR sensor to go do an actual 3D mapping for it. And then once you have that mapping, you can ingest that into a model and learn the point cloud data. So it basically just creates a point cloud data. And Robert and I work with vision learning, so we understand that in drones. So we understand this quite easily. But you're going to say, well, I'm not a multi-billion-dollar, real estate conglomerate. I can't do these types of digital twins. Like, yeah, you can. The tools have gotten so cheap. Your iPhone has a LiDAR sensor in it. Like, it's gotten so cheap that you can do these things really easily. People can come in with a LiDAR scanner for the internal sides of your building and do those things. And so, like Anthony was saying, I didn't really think about it, but the historical data of all the data you're capturing for that real estate property over 20 years, like that's going to be like, just look at your, the Zillow listings now. In the future, you're going to have the Zillow listings plus, like, does this include data? Yes, there's 2 terabytes of data that comes along with this purchase. Like, are you going to take, are investors going to take the real estate investments that don't have data, or the ones that do? If they have, it's a differentiator, right? Like, that's just kind of look at it. That's a great way to put it.
I mean, you can digital data all of the site plan. You can digital data all the building codes. You can digital data all of the entitlement process. Look, if you as an owner own a piece of property, digitizing all data. I just interviewed for Future Factor. I just interviewed the Canadian Lumber Association. Think about what they're doing today. Every piece of lumber coming out of Canada has a chip on it. Look, what they've done in 2025 is they've literally digitized the entire process from trees they're going to pull down, right? Before they even pull them down, they're chipping them, right? When they go to plant, when they take a tree down, they got to put a tree up, right? They put 2 trees up for every tree they take down. They chip them at planting. Right now, imagine as they pull the tree down, it goes through the mill. As each board gets cut, chips have gotten so cheap, they can now add a chip to every single piece of lumber coming out of it. They can watch dry time, delivery, milling. It can follow that digitized process. What they've counted on is that in order to be used by AI, where the future is going to go, schedules will be so tight that having a digital process that AI can see and trust, right? Because imagine building schedules down to 15-minute increments, right? Being able to get lumber to a job site that they can count on it making the schedule, right? When it can't see the the process, right? It's not going to be able to count on your materials. So they're going to go to the guy who can, right? Think about how that applies to both the restaurant world, how that applies to the real estate world. That digital process and accountability and ease of use becomes where all of us got to be looking, right? That's where the puck's going, right? Being able to see that, and I think as we start to apply that in there, I've been telling guys, look, if you're not using AI, right? AI today is your business partner. If you're not using AI, you're just like if you're not working with a partner well, your partner's going to go across the street, right? Don't forget that AI. If you're not using it, it's not a tool anymore. It's a business partner, and like any partner, if you ignore it, it's going to walk across the street on you, and now you're out of the game. So I think that's a good thing for people to be thinking about, right? You don't sit around planning how to use AI. Get ahead, start failing faster, right? Get out there and start to use it. And in the failing it faster, you'll start to figure it out. Just know that you got to start playing, and the failing is where you learn, right?
No, I think that's all great advice. I think as we start wrapping up this conversation, I think the important thing is you've written some great insights on how you've used AI, how you see AI can transform the real estate industry, specifically in construction industry. What would you say to folks who they're trying to convince the decision makers within their organization to embrace this? And then also, what would you say to the decision makers who are kind of resilient or resistant to this change? And how can maybe we give advice to empower the little person, as you say, or the boots on the ground, as we say, to actually drive this change? Is it more of a ask for forgiveness, not for permission kind of thing? Or is it, hey, let's just take some time and build a proof of concept to show, and then you show and tell? What would you say?
I'm going to tell you that, look, your first AIs are going to be boring. They're not going to be fancy, right? Don't look for fancy AI to be, go find something that's going to solve the world's problems. Find the first AI wins in your business are not going to be fancy. They're going to be boring, but they're going to have that boring process happen 10 times faster, right? There's where to start. It's not in trying to solve the world. Don't try to boil the ocean, right? Try to solve the one problem that's not happening today. The payment applications, the stuff that you're missing on, being able to get, those things that are tedious, right? Like for us, the takeoffs that were very time consuming, right? What would stop our ability our business development guys could bring us more and more deals, right? But it would get to a point where just you couldn't absorb anymore because of the takeoff issue, right? We can't go to market not knowing that our estimates have got to be right on, because that's the heart of our business, right? Bad estimates equal lose money, right? And by the way, we've done that, right? We've lost, you miss, scope gap somewhere on a project that you bid and you win. And all of a sudden you got a $10,000 scope gap that comes right off the bottom line. So it's going to be, the first AIs you're going to use are not going to be fancy. They're going to be in those really boring areas of your business. What is that for you? But they're the ones that you do over and over and over again. So start there. And look, I think there's where your leadership, the people that are scared, they're going to be interesting. Like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. You can do a takeoff in minutes compared to days. And I can get these 8 people. I can bid more projects could come through the bids. And by the way, the subcontractors, when they get this from us, they're excited, right? Because what other company gives them a takeoff, right? So it's going to be somewhere in that, and it really, if you're looking at spreadsheets for decisions, you're managing yesterday's problems, right? You're not looking at tomorrow's opportunity, right? Start looking at AI as your spreadsheet, so for us, we had 11 different software packages that we were using as a company. We moved everything to one. Everything that we do is on Smartsheet. Although, hold on, I'm going to say that's not true. Our business development guys are freaking stuck in HubSpot, which I get it. They're just, HubSpot guys, and they will be off it soon. But everything throughout the organization went from 11 different software packages to really 2, which is HubSpot and Smartsheet. And Smartsheet has been able to be that level platform. So we don't have all these APIs we had to develop to communicate to everybody. So now we've got Smartsheet as a platform that feeds the language model for us. And now we're starting to learn how to build more LLMs or, more chats off of each one of those pieces of data that we need to work with, so that we have one source of truth. So look for that. Like, where do you have multiple sources of truth that are making it hard? Do you need to walk into OneDrive and then you got some stuff over here on Teams and then you got another group of information over on where are all the data that you're storing and why? Well, it was easy. Of course it was easy then. But today, as we start to create models, and just like the Canadian lumber folks, you want to be able to digitize your process so that your workflows are completely a transparent look at that. So
That's great. I mean, I've been pondering this idea, like what happens to software now that AI is out, where companies like yours can kind of develop this internal solution, which I'm under the impression that the SaaS model, although it's not dead, like it's going to start declining in my opinion, because of I've heard the story time and time again of companies that have embraced it. Is the power is building your own solution, because again, only you know your true problems, and every business may have different problems in different places, and there's no catch-all SaaS tool out there, right? And even today, how many ERPs, or we deal with a lot with Procore and those type of systems, like there's always something you don't like about it and you wish you could change, and now I feel like we're going to start seeing that happen more often. So I'm glad you said that, because again, I've been hearing that from other business owners as well. One of the my last question that I have is about the you said you hired a kid and hey, he took over this. Like, could you kind of explain like what the background was for that person? Like, obviously, probably extremely motivated, somewhat technical. How much of the business did this person know? Just to give people the idea of like, hey, here's like how we started and we just did this. Like, did he know the business really well? Did he know AI really well? Those type of questions, right? And so that's what I'll leave for you.
you know, for me, it was all about his behavior, right? He was a relentless young man that was ready to go. What he needed was a playground to play in. Right now, what you got to know about those young stallions that are out there as a business owner, especially old guys like me that, they speak a whole different language and you could get all effed up. Here, you want to feel insignificant as an old man? You sit in a room with a bunch of them and they're all talking language that I have no idea what they're saying. There are stuff that they talk about in there that for a moment you can feel really stupid. Now, what you got to do is give those smart young stallions a playground to play in and structure it in a way that they have motivation, incentive to grow. Look, the outcome for these guys were, and you got to imagine, they put tireless hours into it. We gave them a paycheck to be able to feed themselves, but which, by the way, they needed structure. What they need from the old guys out there, they need the structure to know that, hey, look, I want a paycheck. Hey, we're going to pay you well, or we're going to pay you enough to be decent enough to get you started, but you're going to get a paycheck. You're going to show up every day, and here's what I need you to do. If you perform here, and we can get it to a minimum viable product that we can sell, here's what your upside is. And we put that in there, right? Because look, we're going to go to market with a product and we're going to bring some outside investors and you're going to be you're going to get a little part today. It looks small today, but as that multiplies, as we go through round 1, round 2, round 3 of growth of that product, you're going to have something that will change your life. Now, you can go out there and run all you want and be a dog. Look, as a young man, I was much like my dog. I ran into a room and I smelled crotches and ate pizza, right? Just ran around and there was not much focus. I'm going to give you focus and say, look, here, the wisdom I can give you is we're going to get to a minimum viable product. I'm going to give you the space to do that, the tools, the money, the products that you're going to need to be able to fund that. And from that, here's what you're going to get on the backside of it. So learning to structure them and help them grow to something they weren't able to do before by themselves has been the gift I give them. The gift they give me is that they're taking me places and stretching my knowledge to stuff, and we're learning some stuff together. Like, I certainly have got in the last 5 years of AI knowledge from this thing that's fun to talk to on a podcast to today. We've got some pretty good insight, and we're starting to see how these things work really well. And the chat GPTs really are. We're learning which ones work where. Right. We've got some bigger models and some bigger versions and some smaller versions that are some that move quick, fast, some that solve bigger problems. And you need them. Some of the plans we put in, they might be 300 pages deep. Right. Imagine we need to be able to crunch 300-page set of plans for a project, right? So we've learned together on how to put those together, what systems we're using to be able to carry those loads. And these are guys who couldn't have funded those on their own, right? They couldn't have afforded to put some of these little models together. And I'm not talking about huge bucks, but as I've gotten a little bit braver and a little bit bolder, I'm willing to go a little bit further right? Because I can see it, right? They'll bring me a model and go, look at this. And here, and sometimes the first models are literally, they're duct taped together. They're, hey, we put this over here, but I got to ask it this. And you're like, can I just put a set of plans in and get a takeoff? The first ones weren't like that. The first ones were a mess. But we got this, but we don't have the notes. We got this, but we don't have this. And then they would go back and solve those. And then I'd go, okay, look, I'd get a little bit more secure, and we'd fund a little bit more to be able to absorb the analytical portion of that and bring on some bigger processes that made our models smarter and cost a little bit more money, but I could see it. So it wasn't foolish money that just went out there and haphazardly did it. You got to kind of start to do that. And that's the gift of being for you old guys that are out there that have great systems, and bring on those young guys and help structure them to get to a minimum viable product.
That's great insights, and I wish we could talk all day. I know you have a deadline you need to reach out to. So this will be my final question. What would you say to the folks that look at this and they, especially the leaders and decision makers who focus only on the ROI? That's the focus, the things we said. Like you said, the first models are going to be ugly. You don't really know where it's going to lead to. We try to say focus on the time savings that you're going to see more than the ROI specifically. What would your advice to them be to close us out?
Start. Right. Any AI product is selling magic. It's not there. There's no magic. Just like your business, there is no magic. There is no easier, softer way. It's all about relentless getting up and doing it. Now, be bold, right? Forget that what got you into business, what made you the business that you are today was when you started, you were bold. Don't get lazy as an old man or as an old woman. Don't get lazy, right? Continue to be bold, and the bold are what keep you fresh and viable. Right? It's in that stepping back and you're trying to cruise to retirement. You won't get there. This is happening very quickly. This is not the time to resist. Now it's the time to go back up and stand in there. Now, just know that your gift of being an entrepreneur, what got you to where you are today, was that you were able to keep your head on a swivel. As things change, you were able to adapt to that, stay adaptable, and just start to think about all the places in your business. If it's a logistics company, think about how long your trucks are sitting out there idling for free, or if it's a restaurant delivery company, whatever it is, where what are the things that aren't efficient? And that's a pretty good spot to start to look.
No, that's great advice all around. We titled this "Start Small, Think Big." Maybe this episode, "Start Small, Think Boldly." Right? To be bold, go forth, as we like to say. Thank you again, Anthony, for joining us. The valuable insights you provided us is I know Robert and I, again, knowing the construction industry a lot, we're going to take this to a lot of our customers and future customers and point them to a lot of the insights you shared. So thank you so much. For the last couple of minutes here, I just want to open the floor to you to let folks know where they can find you, where they can find more about you. Obviously, we'll have links to your CDO group and Future Factory podcast in our show notes and newsletter that come out on Monday. For those who are listening, linktree.com/digitalmeld will have links to the newsletter and all of our other things. And then on Monday, we'll release the actual newsletter with all the notes and resources that we discuss here. But Anthony, the floor is open to you for a couple minutes. Just where would you like to share?
Well, Robert and Brad, thanks for having me on the podcast. Look, I am so grateful that we do this. All of us, conversations are where the magic happens. And the problem with most of us and we get stuck in our brain. I was talking a little bit about, we got these legs at the bottom of our body, right? It carries, and look, our legs, our arms, our bodies are really designed to carry this brain. Fortunately, it means move. Now, some of us get stuck up in the brain thinking. And the truth is, that's not where it happens. It happens in the movement of the things that we do, the movement of the ideas forward. As we go out there and we speak through this, getting on podcasts like yours really helps us to bring those bright ideas to the surface. Now go out there and be bold with them, right? Go take it on and figure out where and what I can do today. Make that first phone call, right? That first phone call to finding, first subscription to ChatGPT. Subscribe right now. All of you that are listening right now, take the $20 a month and spend $20. You spend more than that on ice cream with your family when you walk down Friday. You don't eat the ice cream this week. You buy them ice cream. You just spend on ChatGPT and, start small, but remember, start. And your movement is key, right? Get out of the analytical stuff and get into the actually physically moving the ideas forward. So I'm grateful for you guys. Please come find me on Future Factory Podcast. It's on all of the great networks, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Please come over there and see that. And you can also find me, Anthony Amunategui. The information will be down below on LinkedIn. And if you ever need to get me, I'm Anthony@cdogroup.com. Please send me an email. Love to talk to you about your ideas and how we can help.
So thank you again, Anthony. Robert, you have any final words?
No, I think, I'm going to put you on the spot, but man, if we could maybe do a follow-up and just kind of see how much
Anytime.
progress you're making, 3 months from now or something, just to kind of show people like, look, guys,
Anytime.
it's a journey, right? So it's awesome. It was good stuff, Anthony. I appreciate the time. We're all busy, so I really appreciate the time you've put in here, and really good insights. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. And so one last word, or linktree.com/digitalmeld. You can get links to all the great stuff. Please follow Future Factory Podcast and give them a like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Anthony talks to people from every single industry. There's restaurant industry. There's people from the tech industry, the lumber folks from Canada. They're revolutionizing industries. And it's just the bold thinkers, like he said. So you can do this. If we can do this, you can do this. And so thank you for joining us on this journey. We look forward to talking to you next week. And just support your small businesses, I would say. And if you have any questions, if you're in the construction industry, reach out to Anthony. If you're in the technology and need some technology help, reach out to Robert and myself. We're happy to help. We're evangelists more than anything else. It takes a village, as we like to say. And so till next week, thank you so much, and we'll see you again. Bye. We want to hear about your AI and automation journey, and we'd love for you to get involved with Start Small, Think Big. If you'd like to participate or offer feedback, please reach out to us anytime via email at contact@digitalmeld.io, or use the contact form on our website, digitalmeld.io/contact. Also, please help spread the word by liking, subscribing, and sharing our podcasts on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks.